9 minutes moving up to the hour of 11. Thank you so much for staying with us as we continue right now with our discussion.
Yes, so where were we before the commercial break? Paradigm shifts. Again, if paradigm shifts really and truly take at least 50 years, it could be 20, it could be 30. What have we started doing in the last couple of years? What are we doing now? Because like I said earlier on, it doesn't matter to me like what your affiliation is or what your religion is or what your belief. You're a human being.
Right.
What are we doing? Are we paying attention to where exactly St. Lucians are going in terms of how we think, in terms of how we see life?
Right. Kurt, another old adage is it takes a village to raise a child. What I remember, because my family originally repatriated St. Lucia in 1985. I was 14 years old, right? The culture and traditions were totally different. I mean, I know we're a growing population, but I think at the time in your small communities, in Vieux-Fort, in Micoud, all over the island, I still say that Labrie seems to be a very close-knit community, right?
Yes.
But I think at that time what it was is that people looked at what was happening outside of their immediate realm. So in other words, you would see a child that was doing something that was wayward, and you would feel you had a responsibility to correct that child, you know?
Yes.
Now, if you talk to somebody and you say, but you saw that happening, instead of standing on the sidelines and say, oh, well, look at that, you know, that child is doing so and so, and that child is doing so, you know, why don't you bring it to their parents? Oh, you see me? You know, when people, they don't like it when you tell them what is going wrong in their life. So it's almost like this defensive thing, rather than look at it like, you know, I've had a couple of instances, Kurt, where I was called to the school for my kids, and my stomach started boiling, and I'm like, what happened? What did Gedev do? And, you know, I wasn't quick that, oh, but I raised my child, right? And it's not my child, and it's, you know, so that defensive nature where we jump to conclusions before finding out what the circumstances were, okay? And I think we rush to judgment that way. So rather than say, okay, wow, was he involved in something with another child? Did he instigate the situation? What is it the principal of Vieux-Fort Comprehensive Secondary School is calling me for, you know? And then, of course, but then, of course, teachers and educators, principals that really have that enthusiasm and passion for what they do, they would be discouraged when parents come in and say, oh, not my child, and you know, don't slap my child and don't hit my child and that kind of thing.
Again, isn't that the double-edged sword with development? You said a village, that's how it used to be before. You know, a village raises a child.
Yes.
We've developed, we now have cable television, we now have social media, we have smart devices, blah, blah, blah.
Yes. And we're exposed a little bit too much. You know, Kurt,
are we overexposed or less filters?
I think
both.
Both. Because think about it this way. With the advent of the internet, okay, so I guess maybe in the 90s everybody started using internet, of course, when it was slow and dial-up internet and all that, right? What I find is that, again, we do not restrict access. So here our children are coming into contact with all kinds of information and stimuli and different philosophies and pornographic images, so many different things that I was not exposed to when I was growing up, okay? Our environment is totally different. Now, have psychologists really evaluated what impact that's going to have on the minds of people?
Can I ask, do we have psychologists in St. Lucia? Do we have psychologists in the schools?
No, but even on a global scale. Because I remember that there was an issue with one of my children's friends smart mouthing on MSN at that time. It was MSN messaging. And I'm reminding her that I'm an adult and you don't speak to, oh, so what are you going to do, that kind of thing. It was so funny that this was so many years ago when the kids were teenagers. So you're talking about a good maybe 11, 12 years ago. And I was saying that, you see that thing, that messaging thing and MSN thing, people are bold and brazen, okay? What happens now? You see these public service ads in the US, Kurt, and I'll just describe one. I'll just describe one to you, okay? There's a mother who is apparently preparing an after school snack for her daughter and her daughter's friend sitting at a table. And the kids are telling her daughter, oh, you're I don't know if I can say that on radio.
No, I know the S word.
Yes, you're this, you're that, and calling her all these derogatory names, right? And so the mother's there chopping her, little sandwich things. And then the caption is, if you're not going to say it to somebody's face, don't say it on the internet. So they have already determined that our social skills are being affected. Things that we may not say in conversation face to face with somebody, we feel that it's permissible to do it online. The chats and stuff like that. When you text message, depending on the way a text message is constructed, it can mean so many different things. Okay, the interpretation can be so different. You can feel like the person was curt with you. You can feel like, they diss you somehow and they didn't mean anything about it.
There are studies which show that the cyber world, our devices, our smart devices, those little those little windows on our PCs, on our phones, they do impact how you feel.
Yes.
For instance, Facebook's emotional contagion, I think, deals with how posting your feed affects you, emotional energies and so on. How, like, if somebody is ranting about their boyfriend left them, blah, 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 blah.
But can I say something, Kurt? Again, I think that the original intent was as a means for people to keep connected, okay, to socialize.
The human condition.
But why is it? And I'm wondering, sometimes when I see all of the rants and the airing of dirty laundry, I'm like, when we didn't have that medium, did we stand on the top of our rooftops and announce to everybody in the neighborhood that my boyfriend did me so and so, and when you live and you learn?
The human condition. It's what you said. Like, okay, going back to the village thing. Parents wanted that before, right? Now we are exposed more to our rights. We're exposed more to Western styles of,
thinking.
Thinking.
Right. Uh-huh.
Even our children. I mean, some will tell, before back in the people tell you, children overseas have this thing where you can't call, you can't beat them, you can't do them anything. No, there's still people who beat their kids overseas, or maybe they might fly down here to beat them. I'm not sure. But with the development of society, with the development of how we think and see life, with those devices and that technology, we've also changed along the way. And we're saying we want a little more control on our children, but yet still we also at the same time we're saying we want less control. Whether we're saying it out loud or subconsciously, we're saying we want the children to be developed. We want to be developed. Don't beat my child, don't do this, don't that. But what are you doing as a person to develop yourself and to keep control? It's one thing to have, for instance, a gun never kills anyone. A gun never goes to jail.
Right.
It's the person using it. So my thing is that, are we hypocrites where we say one thing, we want this, but are we actually doing what it is we say we want? I'm not sure. Does that make any sense?
It does, because what it is that if the ultimate thing is to see our children do well and to prosper and to be functioning members of society, if you want to put it like that, right? A lot of the liberties that have been afforded us, instead of looking at parameters, we tend to anything goes now. Okay, so we, again, it goes back to what I said before, the critical role that we as individuals can play in promoting a better environment for all of us as a collective. We tend not to do it because, again, we're looking at our individual personalities and our lifestyles. And I mean, it also presents challenges for business owners and managers, because I speak to a lot of owners, and I mean, you would be surprised. And I think those things have to come to the fore as well. Not because we want to complain about it, but because we want people to understand that aspect of things, that they might not be privy to. And Kurt, I'll tell you something. I spend a great deal of my time speaking, I mean, now, yes, it's on a radio show, but I mean, inevitably, because you find people will ask you things that are kind of bizarre, and you will take the time. You won't just brush them off and say, oh no, but I don't give credit in my business in this environment, but you will explain to them the rationale and the position. So I spend an inordinate amount of time speaking and explaining and stuff, and I think that people have an appreciation for that. So with the new, well, I wouldn't say new, but over the last maybe 15 years or so, the press has had a lot more liberty. Why not use it conscientiously? I'm not saying represent the interests of a political party or a government.
We're giving the people what they want. That's probably one of the things you might hear.
Yes.
Do you think that's what it is? That if we're always giving the people what they want?
You actually, I think you just finished something that I was telling you earlier, which was this personality said that is what St. Lucians want.
Okay,
Yeah.
so who gives St. Lucians what they need?
Mhm.
Is it St. Lucians? Like, that's my thing. People always talk about they wait for the government, they wait for their rep to do something in the community, right? When if they just got together on their own, they could have pinned the bridge, whatever,
Thank you
whatever,
very much,
whatever the
Kurt.
case may be.
Thank you very much. The dependency is destructive. Okay, we are a small developing nation. We do not have access to unlimited funds. We don't. That's a reality, particularly in this economy.
But how do you take the crutches away?
Well, I think that has been and again, I don't want to put any plugs in here. I want to be very clear. I want people to be able to discern for themselves and to be able to do the investigation so that they can arrive at their opinions, okay? But what I find in the philosophy of the Labour Party, the party and the government, is that they want to ensure that, you have the basic infrastructure to promote growth in any environment. So in other words, you cannot say that you're going to make demands on the police force without equipping them with the necessary tools and resources. You cannot say that you're going to promote or increase tourist arrivals and stuff if you don't attend to the infrastructural repairs and maintenance of the infrastructure and the network of roads, etc.
Yes.
Okay? So don't tell me that, it's just about schools and police stations and roads. Those are absolutely fundamental necessities. And the reason why I really can relate to the philosophy, Kurt, is that think about it in, again, my own private experience as a business owner. I didn't feel like I could make demands where I had several bays where I was largely inefficient, and it was an inconvenience to customers because they have to back up to how many different bays to load one pickup truck because of the distribution of items within the warehouse building group, okay? I can't demand better performance and higher levels of efficiency from my employees. Now I have an air-conditioned environment. I have instituted programs from many years ago, from '05, when we moved into the first phase of the completed building, and we continued demolition and reconstruction of the second phase. And I started a lunch program where the company provides lunches to all employees at a subsidized rate of $5 EC. That's not now as I became a senator. That's from '05, okay? Yes. The schedule that we had for our staff previously was also with a view to promoting a certain level of quality of life for them, because we look at them as integrally involved in promoting the success of the business. If you want to say that your customers are happy and they're treated well, how can you abuse your staff or not provide for them? So you see the same concept of what this administration, what the philosophy that they subscribe to is that we need to improve on those basic systems. But remember that they're also doing a lot in way of legislative changes to set the platform. It's not something that might translate immediately into positive effect, but it's necessary. It sets the foundation. So a lot of the things that we say, we have an inefficient judicial system, we have our hospital situation, all of those things, it's not going to be overnight that they're resolved. But they're putting the things down and in place where they're setting the stage for the improvements that we all want.
As a citizen, I'll say this, and I think many people air that out there, despite which political party makes the government. I think one thing St. Lucians notice, or to me, it disrupts the flow of what we remember. That, again, the paradigm shift takes 50 years.
Right.
If one party comes into play and they're working on something, they lose the next election, another party comes in play, it's derailed. Why does that even exist?
It really shouldn't, Kurt. But if you look at the first 9 years, between years 97 and 2006, of the Honorable Prime Minister Dr. Kenny Anthony led administration, and even now there's consistency. There's consistency in the thrust. There has not been a diversion. What I think now is Dr. Anthony is even more seasoned, and his shoulders are broad, because I have great empathy for Dr. Anthony. People look at the travel and the cocktails and the other things that come with the office of the Prime Minister. What they don't realize is the vast responsibility, the burden of responsibility that comes with the office. The perks and benefits, remember, you're not any longer your own person. You don't decide what your schedule is. You don't, if somebody in that capacity as an executive wants to say, you know what, I don't want to attend this speaking engagement. Oh, cancel that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do party business. I don't want to, travel to this country. But he can't do that. Anybody who is conscientious in that position and understands what it entails and understands what is at stake, they're going to put themselves, sacrifice their own wants and needs in order to do what is necessary. And that is actually one of my criticisms of Dr. Anthony, is I feel like he does so much at the pace that he needs to, that he's not looking at, taking care of himself so that he can do those things. That's that's his ongoing thing. I made a decision in my life also last year, and I think that we all can benefit from that. Conscious living. Let's call it conscious living, Kurt. Okay?
Define conscious living.
All right. I'm told by my doctor that I'm diabetic. Last year.
And that is news I don't think anybody really is looking for. I'm not even going to say sorry to hear stuff like that. You shouldn't tell people that stuff.
Let me tell you, it hit me because it's like you've heard it. You hear about the statistics that as a region, as a nation and as a region, we have a very high incidence of diabetes diagnosis. And Barbados, I think, is top. We are top at one time. I mean, that's not something you want to top a chart, okay? And first you go through a phase of denial, but me, how can it be me? I'm relatively young still. Yes, I'm sedentary and stuff, but I mean, how can this befall me? So you go through that denial stage. Then you go through a phase of sort of depression, because when you start reading up on it and you understand the implications to your life, that your body's not functioning as it should in way of a basic function of processing sugar. And it's a double whammy, Kurt, because on the one hand, you feel awful because you don't know, it's like you don't have energy, because remember, sugar is not being converted by your pancreas into the much needed energy. But the fact that the sugar is not being converted into your cells in the way that it is supposed to work, it also presents a great hazard, because sugar in the blood will lead to poor circulation, retinopathy, so many different ailments. You have the loss of limbs and, kidney failure, being put on dialysis, and ultimately dying from it, okay? We cannot survive with high sugar in the blood. We're not built that way. So when you realize, what now you face, then you go through that phase. But what I decided to do, in reading up, there's a school of thought that you don't have to accept that diagnosis, that through lifestyle changes, because we all know that diabetes is considered a non-communicable lifestyle disease, okay? So look at discipline again, Kurt, okay? Not because I feel sorry for myself, I already have so much going on, I'm under pressure and stuff. To me, that should be all of the reasons that I take care of myself, because how am I going to contend with all these issues if I first and foremost don't have the basic thing of just health, okay, that we all should want, okay? So if you can choose for yourself that because of what you consume, and what I did was I adopted a lower sugar, lower carbohydrate diet, and I started moderate exercise last year. Without being placed on medication as per my doctor's recommendation, which again, I think I don't fault the doctors, What happens is they know how hazardous it is to have high sugar in the blood. So they know that we tend to be indisciplined and stuff. So the easiest thing, metformin or Dionil, okay? You start taking your meds, then of course your resistance grows. You start increasing the dosage, you become insulin dependent, and it's downhill from there, because the insulin also has the side effects, especially after long use, okay? If you can defer that from happening through just weight loss, dietary changes, okay, consuming less, which we a lot of times consume a lot more than we really require. Sugar is an added substance when we derive it naturally from the dasheen and all of the high carbohydrate things and juices and that kind of thing, fruits. So we're adding sugar, which is again a modern day thing. It's not something that we used to do, centuries ago. So if you can do that and institute those changes, and as a side effect of that, get your sugar back to normal, why wouldn't we do it? Why do we choose? Well, why do we?
Because we're lazy. That's why. No
way?
offense to anyone, but we're lazy. You know why we're lazy? Sometimes we say, I'll do 20 push-ups this morning. At the end of the day, but we'll give Oprah, Ellen, and everybody else an hour of our lives. Now, power to you again, and any person with diabetes or any non-communicable disease who's made the choice mentally.
We can all do it, Kurt. We can.
But not everyone seems to have that personal empowerment. So again, power to you for being able to do that. But I just want to, we're close to the show ending, but a couple of years ago, I wrote an article called Diabetes or Diabetes. Now, we know in St. Lucia, we know that the term betes means nonsense. The reason I call the article Diabetes or Diabetes is because, again, no offense to any diabetic, yourself included, to some extent, the fact that it's a lifestyle disease, there is a level of betes, so to speak, that we impose on ourselves based on lifestyle choices, the way we drink, the way we eat, the way we think. We tend to be in the mix like, Gaston has just, one life to live. Let's just live life. And then after the fact, when something does come up, we complain, we cry, and we go into this mode of feeling sorry for ourselves.
Yes.
So what I discovered in writing that article is that, let's say, I think about 60 years ago, like our grandparents, I think those figures were based on North America and a couple other places. But basically, those people consumed for an entire day roughly 13 grams of sugar for an entire day. That's,
Kurt, in a box drink that we always give to our children, much as I'm not talking soda, a juice drink has 27 grams of sugar.
Some have 34.
Listen, put it into context. You just said 13 grams an entire day from natural sources. Put it into that context that in a teaspoon of brown sugar has 4 grams. 4 into 27 is what? Nearly 7. So you have 7 teaspoons unnecessarily, and we're conditioning ourselves to need and want that sugar.
That's what I mean when I say diabetes. That's why I call it that, because we can help ourselves, again, going back to the paradigm shift. We can help ourselves.
And we can get the word out in a way that it will appeal to individuals, because a lot of times, like you said, Kurt, people have those experiences and they don't want to talk about it. They're embarrassed. They feel like, I don't want to say that I was 35 pounds heavier and for that reason I was diagnosed as being diabetic. I am totally okay with speaking about it if it can help to change somebody's life or their approach to it.
And again, I'll say power to you or anyone else with cancer, or any disease, any illness, any condition who's brave enough to speak about it, because some people do feel like if I speak about this, people will reject me, they will laugh at me, they will see me in a different light. Whereas you turn it into something positive and you project that out to people. And that is an amazing thing. I think we're nearing the end of the show. Is there anything you would like to really tell the people on your first show, their first?
Well, I know that you're also on the internet, so I was thinking that because there are a lot of things that come across my table now, in my capacity as a senator, of course as a public figure, but also as a business person, I was wondering if maybe you could encourage people to write about what they think are very pressing and critical topics,
and send them into love,
and especially from the perspective of what goes on in the South. One of the things I get a sense of is we always feel a bit at a disadvantage because of the so-called stigma of the South, and we are the ones who have to effect the change for ourselves.
Yes. Well, when it comes to the stigma of the South, that will take a couple shows for me to speak about. I'm hoping this is the beginning of breaking different stigmas. Yeah. You're a woman, you're a powerful woman. You're a senator. Again, capping back, you were a teenage mom. You're now a senator. I think that alone should tell anyone you can achieve whatever you put your mind to achieving.
Agreed.
Many young women out there need role models. Many people, not just women, people in general need role models, particularly men. I myself still look for models, and I do see role models all the time. We hope to see you again next week.
Yes. Well,
And it's
thank you
rehab.
again.
It's rehab Monday, so we're now waking up to you every Monday at Love FM, and St. Lucia is now waking up to you on a Monday morning.
Thank you.
Well, everybody have a wonderful week, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for the
You as well,
invitation.
Senator Debra Tobierre. It was a pleasure having you on our show this morning, and
Pleasure
I look
being
forward
here.
to working with you in the coming weeks and months. And this morning was quite interesting, so I'm looking forward to more
enjoyed it. I
Rehab
enjoyed it.
Mondays with you
Excellent.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Mhm.